I also noticed the time, talent, and treasure when I came in the building, and I thought, and they say we don't believe in the Trinity. A bystander approaches two stonemasons toiling at their work. He asks the first one, "Do you love your job?" The stonemason replies, "I've been building this wall for as long as I can remember. The work is monotonous. I work in the scorching hot sun all day. The stones are heavy, and lifting them day after day can be backbreaking. I'm not sure if this project will be completed in my lifetime, but it's a job. It pays the bills." The bystander then approaches the second stonemason and asks the same question, "Do you love your job?" The reply is similar. "I've been working on this wall for as long as I can remember, and yes, the work can be monotonous. I work in the scorching hot sun all day. The stones are heavy, and lifting them day after day can be backbreaking. I'm not even sure if this project will be completed in my lifetime, but yes, I love my job. I'm building a cathedral." Selflessness, according to most sources, is defined as having no concerns for self, caring more about what other people need and want than about what you yourself need and want. A lack of preoccupation with one's own interests and desires, attending instead to the interests and desires of others. In all these definitions, there is implied some sacrifice on one's part, a lessening of the self in some way. For purposes of this sermon, I choose to define selflessness differently. Selflessness is not losing one's self. It is discovering oneself in the actions and deeds one engages in service to others. Selflessness is not giving up what we need and care about. It is feeding and nurturing our need and desire to have a purpose, to provide for others, to show compassion, and to be part of something that is larger than ourselves. When we listen closely to the concerns of others, we practice selflessness. When we volunteer our time and our talents, we practice selflessness. When we express gratitude and appreciation, we practice selflessness. When we comfort someone going through a difficult time, or forgive another, or let go of a long-held grudge, we practice selflessness. When we make someone smile or laugh, understand the perspective of another with whom we disagree, when we find the positive in another person, we practice selflessness. It is embedded in our UU principles, and it is who we are as Unitarian Universalists. It is, I believe, the defining characteristic of healthy, thriving, growing congregations. Selflessness in our congregations, though, requires a commitment. Commitment, according to author Peter Block, is a promise made with no expectation of return. It is the willingness to make a promise independent of reciprocity from other people. We engage in selfless acts not for an external reward or in an effort to get something back. We engage in selfless acts for the internal reward, the sense of satisfaction that we get from helping others, from contributing to a healthier congregation, from committing to a cause that is greater than ourselves. The selfless person plants trees under whose shade he may never sit. The selfless person builds cathedrals in which she may never worship. Creating a culture of selflessness is essential for any growing congregation. Involvement in social justice activities outside the walls of your congregation is important. And your congregation should be proud of the connections you have made and the accomplishments you have achieved. But I want to focus this morning on this concept of selflessness as a vehicle for obtaining loving participation among all members within your congregation. But how to achieve that culture and how to maintain it once you have it? Motivational speaker and author Daniel Pink believes that all of us want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, something that matters. And Rosabeth Moss Cantor, in talking about vision, defines it as not just a picture of what could be, but an appeal to our better selves, a call to become something more. Being part of something bigger than ourselves, something that matters, becoming something more, these are the elements, the motivation that creates and sustains a culture of selflessness. And it begins with the word why. Why? In his book entitled Start With Why, author Simon Sinek speaks of the importance of focusing not on what we do or how we do it, but on why we do it. Sinek prompts us to ask ourselves compelling questions such as, what is our purpose? What do we believe? Why do we exist? Why do we get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Sinek describes what he calls the golden circle. On the outside of the circle is the what we do when we go to work, the tasks we engage in, the things we make, the people we interact with. Further inside the circle, closer to the middle, is the how, the nuts and bolts of how we do what we do when we go to work. And in the innermost circle at the center is the why we do the work we do. Sinek contends that most of us start with the what and the how related to our work. When we are asked to describe our work, we almost always relate to others what we do or how we do it. And we're also almost always prompted by others to respond in this way. People always begin by asking us, what do you do for a living? Not, why do you do what you do for a living? Sinek contends that successful people and successful organizations start with why. They have a purpose, a goal, a mission, and that why drives them to do what they do and how they do it. Starting with why applies equally to the work that we do in our congregations. It defines who we are as Unitarian Universalists, and it helps us to remain rooted in this life-changing and life-saving faith tradition. It prompts us to ask ourselves and each other the same compelling questions that Sinek suggests. What is our purpose? What is my purpose? What do we believe? Why do we exist? Why do we get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Starting with why, by the way, offers an answer to that eternal, challenging question that we occasionally get. What is Unitarian Universalism? I don't know. I have discovered that the best way to answer that question is to reply. You may want to write this down. Let me tell you first why I am a Unitarian Universalist. I start with why. We cultivate selfless people in our congregations by starting with why. We fill needed volunteer and leadership positions by starting with why. Years ago, as part of a book I was working on, I sent an online survey to ministers, administrators, membership professionals, and religious professionals to leadership, asking them to rate the level of difficulty in recruiting members to leadership positions. We received over 100 responses. 92% of those responding indicated that it was difficult or very difficult to recruit leaders. The reasons they gave were numerous. I don't come to church to work, and leadership is work. I don't have the time to take on a leadership role. I listen to others in leadership roles, and they don't seem to be having much fun. So how can I expect something different? They don't want a leader. They want someone to do everything. I don't want to be an authority. I left my previous church because I felt I was being told what to do, and I don't want to be that person here. I'm not the leadership type. I'm an introvert, and I don't like to be in the spotlight. Some of these things sound familiar? Of course they do. What all these excuses have in common is that they address the what and the how of leadership. None of them start with why. And when we seek volunteers in leadership roles or not, we tend to do the same thing. We talk about what the person would do and maybe how they would do it. We really talk about why the role is so essential. We don't appeal to people's need to have a purpose, to be part of something bigger and more important to themselves, to become something more. And this applies to the most mundane of tasks. So for example, instead of, we need 10 people to help put chairs away immediately after the service today, we could reframe it as, there is an important fundraiser planned for the sanctuary immediately following the service, and they need open floor space. Would 10 people help to clear the room so that they can set up right away? Rather than, we need people to make coffee. If people don't sign up, we simply won't have coffee. I hear that threat a lot in congregations. I've made it myself in my own congregation. Instead, the message could be, many of our members look forward to our coffee hour and the sharing and camaraderie of being together. Won't you sign up to help make that time an enriching one for all? For volunteer positions, especially positions of leadership, which are the most difficult to fill, we need to provide context for the role. We need to share how the position fits in the larger organizational structure, demonstrate why the position is important to the success of the fellowship, and clarify the ways in which the leadership role contributes to the health of the congregation. And just as importantly, we need to detail what benefits the individual will derive from the work they do. In a 2014 New York Times article, author Paul O'Keefe wrote that people who see a task as interesting and enjoyable will work harder on that task and perform better. Knowing that their work will make a difference or has possibilities for changing things for the better will help people to feel energized rather than exhausted, motivated rather than morose. He refers to it as flow, F-L-O-W, the experience we have when we are, quote, in the zone. The implication for leaders in our congregations is obvious. If we can help members see leadership tasks as interesting, enjoyable, and meaningful, they will be more attracted to the work, they will work harder and longer on the tasks of leadership, and they will be more successful as leaders. They may even, as a result, help to attract additional leaders. When we start with why, our congregational work takes on greater meaning, richness, and joy. And in our congregations, the work can be slow and painstaking and difficult. But the more we heed this call to selflessness, this call that finds its expression in the service of others, the closer we get to realizing the elusive dream of a beloved community. May it be so.